Thank you so much for tuning in to Morning Live. Now, the Hawks have begun investigation into more than 870 million in irregular, unauthorised, fruitless and wasteful spending in Emfuleni Local Municipality in the Vaal. Emfuleni Mayor Jacob Khawe admitted last month that procurement regulations were ignored. And he also warned that action will be taken against any implicated municipal officials. And this, however, is just the latest in a series of adverse headlines emanating from the Emfuleni Municipality. And to talk through some of these issues, I'm joined now by Jacob Khawe, who is the mayor of the Emfuleni Local Municipality. Thanks so much for coming through. Thank
you for the invite. Greetings to the viewers at home.
And there's quite a lot to talk about, so let's get straight into it, starting with the Hawks and, of course, this investigation. Now, the municipality has been contacted by the Hawks. What is the latest in this regard?
Perhaps we must put a perspective here. You know, when you clean your house, there are two narratives of the coin. Some people say, look at that house, it's so much dirty. And whereas others say, look, it's the acknowledgement and it's a self-imposed cleaning process. So we must indicate that this was a self-imposed cleaning process. We have analyzed 3 financial years comments of the Auditors General, and we pick it up that every audit report, there's an identification of wasteful expenditure. And broadly, this wasteful expenditure is around the areas of supply chain and contract management. Hawks have communicated with us. We welcome that. We have given them the report. Post the report, they've said there are specific departments that we've identified. Give us the contacts of managers who have done that, and we're giving that process a fair chance to the Hawks.
So, as we understand it, they've asked for personal details of some senior municipal officials, as you say. How many?
They've asked in the 5 departments. So they would have asked in the fleet management, the CFO and the supply chain management, in the public service department and the water services. So those are the areas that they've said, please give us the leadership details of that department.
So 5 people?
No, it's not necessarily individuals, it's the unit. So they would say, give us the head of supply chain, give us the CFO, give us the manager for this, and then we've just given them those details.
All right, so that's where that process is at. And you've acknowledged, as the mayor here, that there was a lack of contract management and also deliberate ignorance or deliberate deviations from the rules. So in terms of that, how many people have you held accountable?
We have subjected the report into processes. The first one is the Municipal Account Committee, which it has to do that work and identify individuals responsible. So at this stage, the committee is still doing that work. We have submitted the report to National Treasury. We have submitted the report to the police and the Hawks. So at this stage, what I can report to the people of Emfuleni is that the report is in the hands of all relevant institutions that we have given to them, and we are waiting for their work and investigation. At the right time, we'll come back and give clear indication of the steps. What we have said is that those who are proven to have done it deliberately, we will act on them.
So what is the deadline for this process now? You know, at what point will we start seeing action being taken in terms of holding people accountable?
If things were going my way, I would say yesterday. But unfortunately, you must give the police their time, you must give the MPEC committee their time, so it's no longer in our hands.
And how many people are we talking about here who could possibly find themselves under investigation by law enforcement?
We're talking 5 departments. That's what we know for
Still
now.
5 departments?
Yes.
All right. So with regard to some of the other issues that this municipality has been making headlines for, we saw the South African National Defence Force having to come into Emfuleni to do what the council was supposed to have done over many years. And we've heard since the 2008, for example, people complaining about some of the infrastructural problems that led to scenes that were totally unacceptable, where people found themselves having raw sewage spilling into their homes, into the walls, over the streets, into the river system. Things like that should never have happened. How did we get here?
We probably got here for various reasons. One of those would be the aging infrastructure, the economic decline in the area. So you'd know there it's 56% of unemployed people. So we're collecting revenue from very small amount of working and business people. But equally, the internal processes, as we say, we've discovered 872 million of wasteful expenditure. This could be an internal weakness, an internal challenge. To put into perspective the army, this is an intervention requested by us. We requested the President, the Minister of Water and Sanitation, that we need help. Because Vaal River, the river is not like a dam, doesn't flow in Emfuleni only. It flows across from Free State right to Mpumalanga. And we believe that if national government doesn't help us to intervene in this national crisis, there will be challenges that would affect everybody. So this intervention is as a request. So a child requests to a parent, the parent gives in. It's not an army taking over as if there's a state of emergency. The army
that
this
is
time,
understood.
Yes.
But it should never have gotten to the point where the army needed to step in, because it is your responsibility as a municipality to make sure that you look after your infrastructure, and that this situation that you find yourself in should never have arisen. So in effect, you have failed.
In perspective, the sewer scheme is not a competence of the municipality only. The sewer scheme, it's done collectively, and it has demonstrated challenges as a development of the south to south. So on the one side, we were doing good, building houses for our people, building malls in the south of Johannesburg, but as a result, not building bulk sewer system. And therefore, the sewer capacity you have in the infrastructure is not equivalent to the growth and the demands of the city.
That is
so that should not be
element.
One of the elements.
Exactly.
So that can be called a failure when we've given people who are homeless houses. So we put that aside. We come to the second element. When the sewer scheme was designed, it had targets of 5 years to be resolved, and all role players, including ourselves, were involved in that sewer scheme. But we then had problems of not concluding the sewer scheme on time. At some point, we'll share details, because we don't want to come here as Emfuleni and start blaming other people who are part of the problem. However, we think that the perspective and the narrative given to everybody is that Emfuleni has failed. Ask who runs that sewer system, invite them and have a talk with them.
So what exactly is the SANDF doing right now?
It's actually at that sewer system. Moving from that sewer system, they're going to go to pump stations. And once they deal with the pump stations, they will actually resolve the challenge of the spillage. On the Emfuleni side, there's a spillage by private sector, and nobody talks about it, which is fine. There's a spillage by other municipalities. As we say, the river is not a dam in one city. The river moves across, and there's material evidence that is not only Emfuleni that spillage is developed.
Are you going to talk about the dilapidated infrastructure?
In which area?
In your area, in Emfuleni.
We have bad road infrastructure. We have done the audit of how much it cost. We have said to provincial government, we have said to the Premier, we welcome the intervention of 139 and all other interventions. But these interventions must help us to resolve the infrastructure problem. Because inherently, when you receive revenue, when you have industries in your area, you are in a financial capacity to close potholes. But when you don't receive revenue, you're only receiving an amount of revenue that can sustain the municipality and not collapse it. Of course, you're going to have a problem with the infrastructure. So if you want to solve Emfuleni's problem, you must first look at the economic decline of the region, the number of unemployed people, the lack of industries and job opportunities, before you look at the narrow municipal capacity.
Those problems are not peculiar to Emfuleni. And yet other municipalities do not have sewage spilling over into the streets, running back into people's homes. And I think here you are not taking accountability for what you should be taking accountability for not prioritizing the upkeep of some of your infrastructure in Emfuleni, because the SANDF had to come in and do, in part, work that was supposed to be done by your municipality over years It's not a yesterday problem. This is something that should have been done. The upkeep should have happened over years, and you haven't done that as a municipality. Will you accept responsibility for that?
Any problem that affects the community of Emfuleni, I take full responsibility. I'm with the people of Emfuleni. I witness sewer in their houses. I go there and I talk to them. At some point, we make intervention. So it's not like Emfuleni now, it's a dam of sewer. Is that they're living, we have challenges of sewer system. If we resolve the bulk, it will inherently resolve the manholes within the communities. I have seen sewer running in Tshwane, by the way. So the issue is not that, no, Emfuleni, there's a problem and we are unable to deal with the sewer. The issue is
But that cannot be your
aging.
benchmark. It cannot be your benchmark that you've seen sewer spillage in Tshwane. It should never happen, which is why the Human Rights Commission had to come into your area to essentially force you to make sure that you restore human dignity.
Does it mean the last week visit by Human Rights Commission to Johannesburg to look at the flow to the south represent a view about Johannesburg?
What did they say to you?
Today they are in Ekurhuleni to investigate. Does it make any conclusive view that there's a problem in Johannesburg?
What did they say to Emfuleni?
The point we raised that they said to Emfuleni, explain your part.
Mm-hmm.
And we've made an explanation and we've added, among others, who else gives us pressure that we are absorbing for.
Did they not accuse you of impugning on people's human rights in Emfuleni?
Perhaps we're using two different reports. The report I have now...
Was that never said to you?
No. The question
Never.
was, what is your contribution and what you're doing? And we've demonstrated what we are currently doing.
You never heard the words that Emfuleni has basically impugned on the human dignity and rights of its residents. You never heard those words.
I read it from the journalist.
So
you
you
said
read
the
it.
Human Rights Commission, so I was answering in human rights. I'm not answering a journalist. So a journalist made an opinion. I'm talking about an institution that made an investigation. And that's the report we're talking about.
You know what? I'm going to make sure after this interview that I actually find some of that documentation for you.
Sure.
Because I think it's important. It's worrying that you haven't noted that, you haven't seen that. But I want to talk more about some of the other issues, your liquidity issues in particular. You owe Eskom, you owe Rand Water, and your residents are suffering as a result because they have these power cuts, they have water interruptions. And let's look at Eskom. They say you owe more than 606 million rand. This is as of around mid-year 2018. And you are the only one of in the top 10 defaulting municipalities in Gauteng. So what's happening? Where did the money go? Why are you not paying Eskom?
You're using the June report.
Yes.
We signed an agreement with Eskom for 5 years. We can stand here tall that since we've signed the contract this year, we have never missed payment of the debt. We are equally paying every month. If you were to interview Eskom today and ask them, they will tell you that the money we've paid them just this year only surpasses the money we've been paying them over a period of 3 years. Anyway, by the way,
so
when
why couldn't you pay them all along?
You know, I always say, when I was financially ill-disciplined, Eskom was sleeping on credit measure. So we had to stay a period of 3 years not paying our account, and we owe you, and you don't do anything about that.
But that's no excuse. That is absolutely no excuse, because you have a duty and a responsibility to make sure that you actually make sure that you pay monies that are due to your creditors.
That's why I'm saying I was financially ill-disciplined, and I've changed.
You've changed?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk
about... The
about...
account from Eskom will tell you that there have been changes. That municipality is among the municipalities that pay the debt and the current account.
All right. So...
and the shortages of electricity have nothing to do with the account as of April 2018. The shortages of water have nothing to do with the accounts. We're no longer fighting with Eskom and Rand Water on you didn't pay, were cutting.
And
it's technical challenges of electricity cut that affects equally the water distribution. So on record, we want to state here and we want to be challenged.
Yeah, and then
We no longer have
but it
cuts
is shocking.
or not paying.
It is shocking that you will admit to ill discipline and
Yes.
expect, water to just flow past
No, it
because
doesn't.
it's in the past.
It
But let me
doesn't.
ask you this. So in your State of the Municipality address,
Yes.
you said that you planned on decreasing the number of managers in your municipality
Yes.
and assistants from 33 to 22.
Yes.
How far are you with that?
We are now at 28. At the senior level, we were at 8. We will be appointing now 6 managers. We have reduced an amount of 4 million rand from salaries annually, which was paid from the previous executive managers. So we are on a journey to redesign the organizational structure of Emfuleni. We have found a structure that is top management and very less general workers. And we're changing that now with the adverts we're going to issue and employing workers who will do the work instead of having too many senior managers.
And then just a final one on the draft financial recovery plan
Yes.
that you've put out that's currently out for public comment. One of the things that you noted, and you spoke about it earlier as well, you spoke about how about 60% of the should-be ratepayers are actually not paying for services in your municipality. Now, what are you going to do about that? Because at some point I heard there may be a plan to write off some of the debt. What is your thinking in that regard?
We have adopted a new revenue collection strategy. We have adopted the new revenue protection strategy because we have said if you are unable to protect your income, it do not make difference to collect. So we're closing the loopholes of corruption, wasteful expenditures as one of the strategy on the revenue collection. 2, we're cleaning a database, the indigent database, so that we know exactly how many who will never pay us and we know exactly who are supposed to be paying us. 3, we have introduced an online meter system on electricity for big businesses. In fact, we must report that we irritated one company that it took us to court because we are now able to detect that these guys were not paying us what we're supposed to be paid. So there are 4 or 5 plans that we have that will help us to change the mechanism. But we have also asked national government that we need assistance through the form of grants that are existing, because we think through these grants we may be able to create opportunities of jobs and we may be able to do some of the challenges that we are faced with, that we are unable to do what we're supposed to be doing.
Mr. Mayor, unfortunately, we have to leave it there, but thank you so much for coming through and talking to us about some of the problems faced in your municipality. And that was the Mayor of Emfuleni Local Municipality, Jacob Khawe. And as always, free to get in touch with us and tell us what your views are at Morning Live SABC. Let's take a break and then we'll have the news for you.